Welcome to Your Soul Wisdom, hosted by Yana Amor Manocas. In each episode, we invite you on a transformative journey delving into the profound mysteries and wisdom of the soul. Join us as we explore a wide array of spiritual topics and sacred practices that nurture and heal the soul, from reincarnation and soul contracts to the enigmatic experiences of womb alchemy and astral travel. Our discussions are designed to enlighten, inspire, and deepen your understanding of your own soul's journey. With Your Soul Wisdom, nothing is off limits.
To everybody watching and listening, one of these days we will actually make it live right on the dot. We won't be late. The cat. Okay. Everybody, welcome to another episode of Your Soul Wisdom. Today we have the beautiful and magical and mystical, and I don't even have enough words for you, Solreta. Thank you for joining us. It is such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be back with all you beautiful girls and your gorgeous audience as well.
Listen, I heard orgy.
I heard
and she's stuck on that now.
That's what came out. That's what I heard, Kylie. Not my mind.
I haven't finished my first coffee yet. I have a tea waiting to follow up.
Okay, so if anybody hasn't caught Solreta's other episodes, we talked about, first of all, your beautiful gifts. Okay, so everybody go to solreta.com, SOLRETA.com, and get all her beautiful offerings and information on Solreta. But on the first episode, we talked about what you do. Your second episode, we talked about this beautiful hypnosis session you had, which was very magical, and the starseeds and just everything about it was just amazing. And today we want to dive more into correct me if I'm wrong, but your whole life, you've been visited by ETs in your bedroom at night and different kind of stuff. I really want to dive into that because I've never, I'm like on the complete other side of the scale where I'm like, only in my fantasy has that ever happened to me, and not even there.
Yeah.
So what is that experience like?
Well, I guess for me, I haven't had a different experience growing up, different to that. So for me, it's kind of normal. But I also knew as a young child going to kinder and going to early primary school that it wasn't something necessarily that other kids were experiencing. So I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to talk about out loud. And I was lucky to have a team of guides that, said, maybe don't talk about this sort of stuff, with the other kids. And a lot of the time, I was quite fearful as a child because I'm having these interactions. I'm meant to be going to sleep at night and I'm laying there wide awake looking at all these things in my room, whether it was like orbs or geometries or, just beings that would sometimes appear. And my sister and I would talk about, there was a cupboard, an old antique cupboard that was outside in the hallway of our bedroom, like just where you could kind of peer it from the door. And we both would talk about things that would come out of this hallway, this cupboard at nighttime. Bear with me, I'm still waking up a little. So we would be in there going, oh my gosh, and you just would want cupboard doors and things closed. Later come around to find as an adult that these are all quite common things with experiences, that we have a fear of cupboard doors being left open because we sometimes will have interdimensional beings or things come through portals. So yeah, there's just all these common links that you end up hearing about. So the earliest memories I have are probably around age 4 with visitation. And so I have had regressions around it as well. But even before that, there was flashes. So, when you go through an experience and you might not be able to remember from A to Z in terms of the exact magnitude of what happened, but you'll have foggy, blurry bits. So sometimes having a hypnotic regression helps you to recall more detail, or to even on a soul level to dive in deeper and find out what the reasons behind the visitation were. So around sort of 4 or 5 years old, I remember being in bed and having these tall beings stand over me, looking kind of ant-like. And I think we may have touched on it in the other show. I'm not sure. So I could be repeating a little bit, but it was only last year that I got to travel to Monument Valley, Navajo Nation, and to connect with, because my grandfather's part Navajo. And interestingly, in the Native American culture, they talk about being saved or rescued by ant beings and taken underground in times of floods. They refer to some of the ant beings as the Anasazi. And what's really interesting is when you look at, there's a photo of my grandfather and I, and in the background is the exact sort of looking being that I describe in one of the hypnotic regressions. And I didn't even link 2 and 2 together. One of my friends that was there when I had the hypnosis was debriefing with him after. And I think it was just 2 hours after, he pointed out, he's like, in that photo is the exact being that you're describing in the hypnosis session. So big almond-shaped eyes, long kind of like narrow nose. So in my experiences, I didn't remember as much as the child. I just remembered the face, and I remember this tall kind of like figure, over the top of me. But in the hypnosis, it was that they were actually helping me to keep in touch with my gifts. So what we see sometimes with children that are going through these sorts of experiences, or they talk about, in my dream, I like visited the fairies and I went to fairy school. It's quite common across the world. And Mary Rodwell, who's a beautiful researcher and hypnotherapist who I've also had regressions with, she finds that, children all over the world talk about going to fairy school at night, or talk about going on to UFOs and having lessons. So I would be having lessons in physics, lessons in psychic development, lessons in telepathy, telekinesis, all different sort of array of lessons. But what I learned from more the ant being side of things is to be heart-centered and to really be able to, I guess, connect with nature, connect with animals, connect with our planet in a certain way. And I'm still kind of like unraveling a lot of that, especially with finding out about my family origin connection with the Native American side of it. I always, as a child, would say to my parents, I felt really strongly connected to that. And I always said I felt like my grandfather was from there. And then always say, no, no, no. And it's only in the last year, with me going over there too, that we found out like all this family history and connection, and a secret relative that I'd always said I felt like there was someone else. And we found out my dad had a brother 10 years older. So there's a lot of like things that I always felt coming to the surface. And it was only a couple of weeks ago that they even discovered more handwritten notes from another relative talking about another Native American connection in the family too. So what I've noticed is, for all the beautiful clients that I read for, sometimes there's certain things that will come up on an ET level. And I'll just grab this. And some of you girls have experienced this. I know I've done this for Rachel and for Lauren as well in their readings. I've got this little pie chart that I've made that just has various different starseed places in the Andromedan galaxy, as well as you might see Lemuria or things like Atlantis on there, because it's really kind of talking about some of the places that the beautiful souls that are walking this ascension path and walking the starseed side of things will have experienced. So if we're looking at us being souls coming to different places, and then we come into the earth realm, quite often we've got a lot of soul experience coming in. And so certain children and even certain adults will have memories or have sort of a feeling of being drawn, whether it's like a vision of a blue star, and then like you hear the name and you're like, something just feels like home about this. So anyway, I could go on and on. But yeah, I just find there's a link between what I experienced as a child to a lot of information and a lot of things that I'm seeing with my clients. There's a lot of commonalities. So I think a lot of us are hybrids living more in the human side of things. And I think there's certain percentages of DNA that have more ET hybrid influences. So a lot of the native culture talk about being visited by the stars. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I come across a lot of people that that suffer from homesickness. And it can be really quite, in fact, I was speaking about that today as well. And it can be really very, very strong, and what I used to suggest was them going into sort of like meditation or going into sleep and asking their team for a visit back home, to their, in a sense, to their original planet, or to the planet. Because I think some of us are coming in from many different spaces, and we could have been there for eons. Do you know what I mean? So we really hold that in our DNA and in our type, and we just miss home. And coming here and forgetting really why we've come here, and just knowing that for a lot of people, I don't belong here, you know, I want to go home, and that. So sometimes just getting the taste of home, and just in a sense, a reminder of why they're here. They may not consciously remember that when they come back, but they're a lot more, they feel a lot more, what's the word? I guess, filled in their soul. So they don't feel so lost and so alone. A lot people can feel really alone, you know. Yeah. And sometimes looking for their tribe is also looking actually for their other ETs.
Yeah, that's so true. And you know, with homesickness, there's various different degrees I've noticed amongst the different groups, depending on where we sort of fall with this. So it's something I definitely go deeper into a session, as well as remedies for the homesickness as well. There's certain flower essences that are really good, like honeysuckle is a really good flower essence for homesickness, jasmine, even rose. And I do have a meditation that I've got for free on Insight Timer, and also on my YouTube, called Soul Star, where you can actually use that to go back home, and it puts you into a deeper, relaxed state with the binaural beats as well. So it's a really beautiful meditation for those that are experiencing homesickness.
Beautiful.
And that will, in the soul contract world, that's the 8th frequency. Right. And so a lot of people with that 8 frequency, that feeling alone in a crowded room next to everyone that they may love, they just feel this alone feeling, like I belong, but I really don't belong kind of energy. And interestingly enough, it was pizza day in my daughter's school today. And she's got all these friends. My daughter, Olivia's, it was pizza day at Olivia's school. And so I volunteered. Pizza. I volunteered to go serve the fruit and the pizza, whatever. And this was the first time I saw all her friends were sitting at a table, and she was sitting by herself across from a teacher. And I didn't say anything because I don't want to point it out to her. And she's a soul destiny 8-8. So she is like everything that you're talking about, Solreta, what we've talked about, that is who she is. She's that beautiful little starseed. And I'm seeing her by herself, sitting there just comfortable, being alone and eating with herself, whatever. And I'm thinking, it kind of broke my heart, because on a human 3D level, all her friends were right here and she was right here. But I very much understood, okay, I have to nurture this inside of her. I also felt it as a child. I also have that same frequency. And so it was just one of those where I was like, okay, I see that it's happening. It's already happening. And you have to nurture that as a parent. It's like the toughest thing to see your child, even though in her world, she was totally fine, but it just broke me inside. But I want to go back to how you mentioned, like, it seems and it sounds like these visitations that you had were beautiful. But you also hear a lot of people who had complete different experiences. And so one of my friend's brothers, they grew up in Wisconsin, like in the middle of cornfield, you know, very like small town. And one day he was coming home from school. Well, it was like 3:30, and he's walking through the cornfields. And next thing he remembers is kind of waking up in what he referred to as a spaceship. He felt like he was paralyzed. There were these beings like over him, kind of working on him. And I don't remember the details, so I don't want to like misquote him. Then he said, the next thing he remembers after that, he wakes up. He's still in that same spot of that cornfield. It's night. Now he's been missing all afternoon. And he never told anybody, because he's like, no one's going to believe you when you say that. Well, fast forward years later, he would get these frequent visitations in his home where he'd like fall asleep on the couch, and like he would be woken up, not being able to move. And these beings are examining him. Same thing. And then when he went to his dentist and had an x-ray of his mouth, they found this little chip in the middle of his gum, like above his teeth in the middle of his gum. And they're like, there's no human explanation to how this chip would be there. So he associated, and again, I don't know if he remembers that they were the ones that put the chip in there, but for him, it was almost a traumatic experience where he moved his family to different states because he's like, I don't want to be in this place where this happened, but they follow him. Yeah. And so he can't tell people because he's like, people think you're crazy. And that is a completely different experience from the one that you've had.
Yeah, so there is a multitude of experiences. There was a survey taken, Ray Hernandez, who does, I'm trying to think of the name of the foundation. I think it's called FREE. It stands for something, but I forget the acronym meaning. But after all of the people that were surveyed that had ET experiences, and I also did the survey as well. This was years and years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So they found out that majority of percentage, like 80% of people, were actually of a positive experience. Very different to like what you hear with Hollywood movies and like the dramatization of things, but there are negative experiences out there. And I think when you're going through it, so as a child, you know, I was still really scared of a lot of the things that were happening because we don't have, you know, a parent there a lot of the time to be able to say, hey, this is actually normal. It's like within the family. It's maybe happened to other people, but a lot of people do keep, you know, zipped about it. And so I remember we would always drive to the country on long weekends to go visit family relatives. And there was this certain highway that I was always really scared driving along at night. And I'd be in the car and I would have this sensation of this feeling of, oh, they can still get me, or I can still get pulled out of the car. And for a child that is terrified of any horror or any kind of, you know, movie that's even slightly scary, maybe The Labyrinth was probably like what I could tolerate back then, or The Never-Ending Story. You know, that would have been the height of scary movies for me back then. But I later find out, you know, in my, I think it was maybe 30s, that highway was named the UFO highway because a lot of people had abduction experiences along there. So it's not until we're older that we can connect the dots. And even still as an adult driving there, I'm like looking out the windows at night, looking up at the sky, you know, if my partner's driving. And it's not the same sort of level of fear or anything like that. It's more intrigue and mystery. But yeah, there's so many commonalities. I know even when I had dental x-rays for wisdom teeth, they found it was a 3 to 4 centimeter, which is about, I think, 2 inches, circular shaped disc sitting in my sinuses. So I'm, you know, having a background in natural medicine too, I'm like, okay, well, that's not normal. And they sent me off for an MRI. And I've got this little, I should put it on my desk. Rediscovered it again lately. This is called an ENAR. So they were actually designed for cosmonauts to take into space to be able to fix and heal themselves with electrical frequency. And so I just used it on there because a lot of implants have an electrical or a bioidentical type nature. So I gave it a little zap. 6 days later, went off for the MRI and it was gone. But I've still got it on a picture of an X-ray somewhere. I'd have to like dig through my computer.
And it's on that.
Yeah. So it was sitting around here. And this X-ray happened around the time that I was getting upgrades with my vision and I was having a lot more ET experiences. So you'll notice different patterns of heightened experiences throughout your life. So some will be early childhood, then you might have a quiet period. So for me, some of it has been when we, just to use my little map again, so when we choose to come in and have these experiences and we have a lot of hybrid energy, or we're maybe in a family line that's had visitation, down here in the 3D, and you can just imagine, so imagine I'm a scientist, I'm an ET, and I volunteer as tribute to come down to Earth to maybe do some research, have a human experience, report everything back to the ET side of things, or like the otherworldly side of things, my experience down here. At the same time, you'll find that a lot of us will volunteer to have samples or tissue taken to be part of experiments or like hybrid programs. So some of us will even meet hybrids, which sounds like crazy, but even people sometimes that don't realize they're having an ET experience will have dreamlike visitation of holding children, being in a nursery type setting. So sometimes it'll actually be from your DNA. And there's also like strange pregnancy experiences that are linked with this too. So yeah, it can go on and on.
I just think though that's quite I just think though that's quite, I think it can be quite traumatic, quite horrific, if I'm going to be honest with you, to know that you've had a child, or to just have memory of having something and no longer having that, because you live with that sort of memory in your body, you know, even though you've got no way of visibly showing that or saying that. Do you know what I mean? But you know that I don't have this baby that I know that I had. And I do know of the fact that there are there are agreements with extraterrestrials to take a number of humans. I think that was what was done back in the early days of it, I guess in the I don't know if it's the 40s or the 50s, whereby there was agreements to take a specific number of humans to sort of like work on or experiment on. And in exchange for that, we were supposed to have been given technology. Not me per se, but I mean, like, you know, we were supposed to be, the people at the time were supposed to be given technology, and then, and that was to do with the Greys. And then, but they kind of reneged on that deal and were taking a lot more people than they were humans than was agreed. But on a whole, you don't have that kind of control over or holding them to that particular kind of contract, you know. And so sometimes though, I do think that when we see things, when we watch things on telly or we read things, that it is disclosure. It is a way of letting us know what is happening, because otherwise we don't know. And it's very easy for them to sort of discount what people are saying in terms of being abducted, because, you know, for the most part, they've made us not believe abductees and stuff like that. And it doesn't happen when we actually know that it does. It's very, very real. But I think even when they sort of take you to, like the story that Yana spoke about, and you're waking up on that table and you're seeing these beings looking down on you, as she was saying it, I'm kind of thinking inside myself, no, with all the technology you've got, don't make me wake up. The fact that I can wake up and I'm seeing you and that's in my system, do better. Do you know what I mean? Because that is, because look what he was trying to do, move his family to different places so that he wouldn't get taken again. And I just think, no, if you've got the ability to take me out of my car, go and do what you do, and then put me back, keep me asleep the whole time, do better, get a better, what they call it, anesthesis or whatever, do better. I don't know.
Anesthesia.
But I just think magic. Yeah, anesthesia. But what are they called? And then I don't know. But there are, yeah. And so there are a lot of that. But you know what's funny? Okay, sorry. I just wanted to say that when you were speaking about being attached to, say, like a hybrid group and all of that kind of stuff, within the Lightbody process, we have a process whereby we release people from those type of group. They're called, oh God, I keep on forgetting what the name is, but there are different types of vow breaks we can do to release people, because sometimes people are incarnate here. They belong to a group somewhere else, like an ET group somewhere else, but they're incarnate here to become individualized. And throughout many lifetimes, they've almost left themselves what we call the clues to wake up in this lifetime and realize that the purpose of them being here is to sever themselves from the group. It's a bit like the Borgs, you know, if you ever saw Star Trek with the Borgs, you know, to sever themselves. And you have the group mind. It's called the group mind. And you also have what we call trons, and trons are more sort of soldier-like, and they fight on the brink, right on the in-between of good and sort of like dark, and they fight right in there, but their whole life is attached to a group mind, so they never really, and apparently you can sense them whereby you ask them a question or when they're talking and it takes them time to respond, because they're actually feeding the question back to the group mind, then the group mind then answers, and then they bring forth an answer. It's very interesting when you actually in the process of seeing it happen, and sometimes you can actually know someone, that's a group mind that's happening. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's the hive mind. And I'm just hearing a lot of like double feedback still. I don't know if you girls are getting that come through as well. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think that was around the Eisenhower administration that you were talking about with the agreement with the Greys, that there would be an exchange for human non-volunteers because they weren't volunteering. So what we also see is that with some of these things, and this is where the topic becomes a bit more broad in that there's also the demonic side of things as well. And there's some ETs that are more demonic, masquerading as ET. This is where like as a being and as a soul experiencing the 3D reality, we really need to learn about sovereignty, and we need to learn about protection. This is the biggest. Yeah, I think this is the biggest part of it. But yeah, luckily with the ET side of things, when they did do the surveys, which are quite in depth, I think it was like 100 questions around ET experience. Majority of them ended up being positive, luckily.
Yeah.
Well, I think an ET is trying to take Kylie right now.
Solreta, when you were coming on and I was thinking about it this morning, I was originally thinking about what an amazing experience it would be just with your gift of being able to see people's auras. And you said to me in your session that you'd had this gift your whole life. And I imagine overall that's sort of like a positive experience. I'm sort of interested, like, I feel like I have to get multiple questions in here. So it sort of goes like this. It's like, is your connection, like, I would imagine the best thing about the aura thing for me would be that you always have an instant connection out of 3D reality into 5D reality. And it's almost like you have proof in this 3D reality so that you can bridge those two things. It's sort of like, do you think your openness is one of the things that has sort of caused you to have this experience? Or do you think because you were destined to have all of these experiences, you are so open, that sort of chicken and the egg thing? Then also overall, I was thinking, I was all, glitter and rainbows and all this kind of stuff. And like this conversation has gone way the other way for me. And I'm like, overall, is it like that sort of experience that it is rich, but it is as scary as it is interesting and special, that kind of thing? And then lastly, how can you turn off your connection? Oh, I feel like I have to ask all these questions with frankly, the subject matter, because I won't be able to speak again for the rest of the show. And can you turn this on and off? Do you know what I mean? Can you actually say, I can't do this today. I just have to be a mother. I need to cook dinner and I just need to have a sleep like a normal person, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm sorry if you can't remember all of them, but there you go.
I'll try and remember it and do my best. But yeah, great questions. Thank you, Rachel. So
yes, and I'm sorry about it, but it's the nature of this show, especially with you, that I know that that's it for me now. I'm tapping out for the rest of it.
Well, yeah, I guess going back to childhood, it wasn't something I could switch off. And I knew just through, interacting with other children that they weren't necessarily seeing or experiencing auras. But what I sort of saw was, like, if I sort of look back on childhood now, I'm so happy that it didn't close down. And if we look at all children, all souls, we're born with these spiritual gifts. So it's actually quite normal to see auras up until about age 2, 3. And then a lot of the time children are told it's your imagination, or they'll be dreaming, communicating with other beings, and it's easily shut down. And so they learn, okay, that's not something we can talk about down here in this realm. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time the growth is stunted. Whereas if you can keep children awake up until about 7 years old and still experiencing or allowing them to speak about their spiritual or dream experiences, they don't sort of close those gifts and those psychic faculties down. So for me, I think it was having a strong, stubborn streak and not in a mean way or anything like that, but it's like my parents would tell me something. And I think that also, in the whole scandemic side of things too, it made me very sure of my beliefs and very sure of knowing what was happening and knowing that, there was a darker agenda happening behind everything too. And I find this a lot with people that are starseeds or, remember other lifetimes, that we're not easily as programmed. We also have a higher incidence of dyslexia, which is myself. And with the ET thing, the other weird anomaly is ambidextrous. So our handwriting looks almost kind of similar with both hands. So there's like weird, strange synchronicities. But for me, when I learned to turn it off, was when I was pregnant with my first daughter. So around 19 was when I learned to be able to turn it off. And I felt like I had to go into sort of like a shelter, closed down protective mode, because, you know, when you're walking around like an antenna and you're getting all these psychic pings all day, or you're getting like a multitude of experiences, or like different beings, or you're, you know, meeting people, and you're not just sort of receiving information on a voice, you know, auditory communication level, like you're seeing the colors around them, you're experiencing being in their field, and you're feeling all of their emotion and empathy, and, you know, everything's sort of like super heightened. But yeah, if we look at it on a visual spectrum too, and this being like our human level of experience, when you look at it on the available spectrum, you know, we have infrared, we have UV, we have microwave rays, all of these radio waves and TV, you know, transmissions are going on, but we still only see this much. So I just think that, you know, I see a little bit more outside of the human gap, but I actually feel that that's a natural gift that we have. So I teach how to see auras. I've got a course over on Mason Jupiter on how to see auras. And it's so amazing to hear people's experience of seeing colors, whether it's around their pets that they're practicing on, or around friends or family members. And I take people through a whole, I guess, you know, if we look at the conditioning and programming we have from childhood, there's a lot that we need to tap on or do meditation and work at removing blockages and veils and things that we've had placed over us. Or even, you know, sometimes we'll have past lives. And I know this is going in a wider side of things, but you quite often will see people that have memories or incidences of being witches in other lifetimes, where they've had to shut down, they've had to switch off the gifts for a survival mechanism in that particular lifetime, which is all concurrently happening in the now. So we're still experiencing those things now. So when we actually remove, whether it's vows or oaths and things like that we've made, quite often you'll get gifts start to switch back on. And then there's activations that I've popped within that course that will help to heighten the senses and expand the bandwidth of the reality that we're seeing. But yeah, with the aura side of things, I consciously remember, I think it was later high school, just saying, you know what, stuff it. I don't care if I'm the different one anymore. I feel like I need to start talking about this, because as a child, I just thought I was going to experience my whole lifetime, you know, feeling into like a wider view of reality compared to a lot of people. It's almost like you have to kind of bring yourself down in a way, or like turn the volume down or dumb yourself down to just pretend like you're experiencing the normal reality. And so, you know, I learned to be a chameleon and kind of fit in a little bit, or to just not talk about certain things. And then, yeah, high school, I'm like, let's just let it get weird. Like, who cares? So that was when I started to talk about seeing colors, seeing auras, and it became like a bit of a party thing of people saying, you know, what color can you see around me? And I remember consciously talking to a friend one day who mentioned the word Reiki, which I hadn't heard of in high school. And she's like, oh yeah, they work with energy and things. And so I just start talking to her about, do you see the little bubbles everywhere? Like, if you look in the sky, do you see the little transparent bubbles and like the wiggly worms, which I didn't know back then. I didn't have the vocabulary. It was prana, it was chi, it was life force energy, which exists as 98% of, or 98 point something percent of matter that's actually around us. So we now know through science that we can harness chi. We see this in the ancient teachings and with the ancient masters that work with empty force technique, work with Tai Chi, work with Qigong, work with acupuncture. So I really think that science is so slow in catching up to something that's natural, but a lot of the ancient masters, you know, have written so many books on it. So hopefully that answers the question.
So Rita, do you connect color to the type of ET or the type of, I don't know what other word to use. You know what I'm saying? Like, is an aura color, oh my God, what's the word? What am I trying to say, you guys? Is there a color specific to a certain kind of starseed, or gray, or?
Yeah, so I see color as a language. So when I'm reading someone's aura, and you'll see that there's I guess you've got your physical, then the etheric is slightly outside of that. And then you've got mental, emotional, astral, spiritual, and then you'll go even beyond into like the causal and spiritual planes. But depending on where placements are of different colors within the aura, and sometimes it's like tuning. So I might see pink in a lot of people's auras, but then there'll be a different overtone or frequency or a different softness, or whether it's like a mist of pink or a sparkling of pink. So there really is, I guess, for me, I didn't have a guidebook growing up. Now I'm an adult and I have books on auras and I have different definitions and that, but I haven't sort of found where there's a one size fits all system. And so that's why I wrote my How to See Auras course, because I'm coming from an experience of having to work out the translation, having to work out, the placement side of things. And I just wanted to keep it as pure as the gift that I came through with as well. So what I see is we have the indigo children. And so, the knowledge that's been out there around the indigo children, I think since around the 80s, it was 1980 and even a little bit before, because you'll quite often get scouting souls that will come in to set the energy up before. And so just to set the tone for an indigo children is someone that's more like a spiritual warrior. They can be a little bit of a stubborn badass when it comes to, not budging on the belief system around just knowing I guess their truth and their soul mission. But yeah, they quite often will have experiences of telepathy or different soul gifts, or just sort of like a sense of knowing and empathy. But yeah, they tend to have a little bit of an indigo tinge in the aura. Then later on, we heard about the crystal children and the rainbow children. Yeah. And so the crystal children have more of a crystalline structure in the aura. The rainbow children, one of my girls, actually, my middle daughter, has more of like a soft, opaque, rainbow opalescent type aura. And to me, that usually represents souls that are coming in from like even higher dimensions than our Andromeda galaxy. So she's coming from much, much further away. And I won't say her name publicly, but like her name literally means from the bright world. And so that's the soul frequency and energy she's bringing through, and her gifts into our realm, into our world. So yeah, but you will see Blue Soul Group too, which is made up of Pleiadian, Syrian, Lyran, Inner Earth being in the Elvish realms. So yeah, it's so hard. It's really such like an individual basis, but sometimes you will see people that gravitate towards like the pinks and the golds might have like more of a Pleiadian aspect, or even like the blue. And then sometimes you might have like with the people that connect with the mantis energy, which some of the beings visitations from. There's some of the beings that also work with the hybrid nursery type energy too. You might see golds or greens and things associated with them. So yeah, I guess there would be another survey needed to really find out like what the majority is. But I know in my past questions, when we go back to like the, I guess, what you guys were saying before about like the science side of things, and maybe like, some people don't want to have eggs or sperm and things harvested, or body parts for some of these programs. And that what I see with the people that have the mantis energy come up within here is, if I was to survey them, I would say about probably 70 to 80% have had things happen like within the family. I find the incidence of twins within that bloodline of people that have hybrid energy tends to be quite high. So like my mom is a twin, and so many of my clients that have had that come up in a session will have twins in the family, and quite a lot of them have actually had a twin that's passed in utero, that they were actually coming into this realm. It gives me goosebumps talking about it. The other flip side of things is the other people that have that mantis energy that don't have children in this realm will sometimes go towards jobs that are centered around looking after hybrid children, or children that are starseeds coming in with gifts. So we see pediatricians, gynecologists. The one that threw me was the speech pathologist, because I couldn't put my finger on why would we have so many speech pathologists that talk about having hybrid children come in, or they don't talk about it, but I see it in a session really clearly. And they're like, I haven't told anyone that. But what I found was when I started listening to the telepathy podcast, I think it was last year, and they talk about speech pathologists communicating telepathically with some of these children. And so I'm like, that makes sense now why I've always seen speech pathologists work with these beautiful hybrid souls. So I think we're gathering all of the data now. We're more able to look at it from a holistic perspective. And these beautiful kids are here to really help us also strengthen, our gifts and to switch them back on.
Yeah.
Wow. I got a lot to say. Go on, Jan.
Well, I'm trying
Do you know what I was going to
to
say? Okay, so when you speak about the speech pathologist, do you mean like a speech therapist?
Yeah.
So it's really funny because my middle child, he used to see a speech therapist, and I didn't like her at all. I didn't like her energy. The very first time I met her, I didn't like her energy. I didn't like how she was dealing with it. And it was the first and last time he ever saw her. And he asked me when we left from there, like, will we come back again, mummy? And I just said, we're not going back there. We're not going back to anyone who doesn't think that you don't have, or anybody doesn't have the ability to heal themselves. Because all she kept telling him was that you can never cure a stutter. We just have to teach you how to manage it. And she just kept saying, she kept repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. She must have said it about 5 times, in like a half an hour session. And I just thought, there's not a chance that I can sit down here listening to you say this. So it's really interesting. And I would have said that he is an indigo.
Yeah, it sounds like she might not be in the right job.
No, not in the right job. Absolutely. But I felt it. It was very strange. I just felt like, no, you're not supposed to be here, and you're certainly not supposed to be saying that. Why would you say that? And why would you say that to someone so young when they have so much life to live, so much to go through, so much creativity within them? Why would you feel the need to imprint that in them? I just never understood it.
That's where we see, how I was talking before about there can be like different overshadowing. So sometimes you'll have, and I'm not saying that's the demonic side of things because it doesn't sound like it, but sometimes you'll get where there's certain people that will have experiences. My son and I witnessed this in one of the lockdowns that we had here in Melbourne. We went into a gluten-free bakery because we're both celiacs, and there was a man loading the food from the truck. And it was the weirdest thing. We went to walk through the door into the building, and he stopped, put his things down, looked at my son and I like the guy from Men in Black, that's the alien that comes into the human body. And he's like, give me some sugar water. That scene in Men in Black.
Right.
This man puts his things down that he's carrying into the store, looks at my son and I, head tilted, and he goes, remember to get your vaccine. And my son's like, what the hell? Was that like a government broadcast that just came through him? So if we look at sometimes in people that we're meeting, that there can be iconic influences, there can be different things come through. So with your son being like, I just feel this beautiful energy of him being quite intuitively gifted and just having like other, beautiful characteristics and things that are a bit more outside the bandwidth of the normal human experience.
Yes.
There are sometimes where you have teachers or people of authority that come in or will have influence come in to say things that will either program a child to shut down their gifts, to not speak up. And this is where, being a bit of a rebellious soul, I think that's what kept me safe from those experiences. So we do as parents, like, I'm so happy to hear that you trusted your intuition and just was like,
thank you.
Because imagine if he went and he got programmed to believe all of that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that out. It's really important for parents to know that.
Okay, so then if you do have a child who is telepathic or sees auras or is very, is psychic, all these beautiful gifts, how do you nurture that child? Because you went through it, you still carried all your gifts through. Was it something your parents did, would you say? Or like, what would you throw out there to best nurture that?
Yeah, well, I guess, having dyslexia, so going to various different things and having various different tests and things, a lot of in the 80s and 90s growing up, it was that you were made to feel stupid. And so I think that if we can, my mum, she was so beautiful because she always said, no, there's different types of intelligence. So she always said to me, you're so creative, or she really, put weight to the things that I was good at. Whereas like my sister was more academic. And so, you always sort of measure or weigh yourself up against siblings that are finding reading really easy, and so my mom would always say, you're really good at, art and the creative side of things. So I think if we can just really put attention on like our children's natural born gifts. And what I find too is that a lot of us that would be listening to your beautiful podcast are more kind of the parents that would probably have that telepathic or heart link with our children. So sometimes even with the kids that aren't speaking from an early age, you intuitively just have an understanding of what it is that their needs are. So sometimes like you'll reach to give them maybe like a little sippy cup or something and they haven't even said anything, but you don't even realize that we're in telepathic bond. So it's not until we sort of start to hear more information that we're like, oh, I do that. And I didn't even realize. So a lot of us just have this natural born instinct that kicks in with motherhood. But yeah, I think, just really nourishing their gifts. And I think having a session with you girls as well, and, like the session I had with you, Yana, it really, you can see the gifts within the name and within the frequencies. And I think that really also on a human mindset level helps us to understand our children. I know astrology for me really helps me, especially having kids that have huge stelliums. So one of my girls has 5 things in Scorpio, and my son's got like 4 things in Capricorn. So I can really sort of see with them, okay, they're here to like create or have an imprint or to have a certain kind of soul experience. And I think that as a parent helps us to go, okay, he's maybe resisting school right now. He's maybe not doing what he's told, but he has this leadership quality that, I see different things within my son. I'm so grateful to my astrology friends that helped me to get through, the school refusal side of things and seeing that, what he really loves is tech. And I had him in a Steiner school, which they don't do tech until year 9. So by the time other kids are learning how to switch a computer on or learn where the button is to turn a computer on, he's already built websites, he's built chat bots, he's built actual computers from scratch. So I had to really reassess things and look at like, what's the best model? Because we're trying to fit kids into programs, whether it's an alternative school or whether it's a mainstream school. And this is where I think we have to look at their individual, unique astrological side of things. It's the blueprint they've come in with or the name frequency. And this kind of helps us to, I guess, to parent in a different way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. And it's funny because, listen, whether you're a parent or if it's your partner or your parent, because you get to the age where now you're the mother to your mother and all that. I am there. But it's really important to, I will say, the soul contract work for me, understanding the frequencies and seeing them when people talk to me and how they act and how they move. It helps me nurture that within them. Because if I didn't know, whether it's astrology, soul contracts, numerology, whatever the modality is, take that as the gift and go, okay, this is who my child is. This is who my partner is. This is who my, parent is, whoever, and nurture those things, like you're saying, that are going to help them bring joy and success and critical thinking and all that stuff. But it's very, very important. It's very important to understand that. My favorite part of this work is when parents come to me and they'll book a session and they'll say, tell me about my kids. And I'm like, great, because then you can understand everybody's different. We grew up in the same house, but we're completely different individuals. And what works for me is not going to work for my brother or my sister. I mean, we all couldn't, there's 5 of us. We all couldn't be any further apart from each other. It's like wild. But that's why it's so important to understand. I know we're getting off of ETs, but still it's so important to understand.
I think this is really important for a lot of parents.
Yeah, because we're definitely at a time now where, again, I was younger, so I wasn't in the adult circles, but we're at a time now where people are openly discussing this stuff. People are seeking it out. People are opening up their mind to other possibilities and bigger possibilities. And so the more that we discuss these things, the more it goes out into the collective consciousness, right? And so it trickles out to everybody. And I think it's such an important conversation with whoever is in your life for you to start viewing things a little bit more open-mindedly, a little bit more from the heart space. It's such a huge thing. So it's life-changing.
And I think we're ready for it as a collective. You know, it was 20 years ago that I was speaking about this on TV in Australia. And that's, you know, almost half my life ago now, because just turned 45. And I remember just being, it was interesting that we were talking about indigo children was the way that we sort of softly introduced the topic. It was on the Aussie girls here will know the show or the channel SBS. So it was on a TV show on SBS called Speaking in Tongues, which was actually run by Father Bob and I forget, I think it was John, someone. But anyway, they would interview people like pet psychics and different people of those sort of more like fringe type topics. And so I was the girl that was representing more the indigo side of things and the ET side of things. And they actually got me to speak light language on the show. And then the next week for the recap, they asked the audience to say what they thought I said. And then we popped up the translation. Out of the people that weren't joking and saying, beam me up, Scotty, or, you know, things like that, it was actually about, I think 98% of people actually got the translation. So I think that, you know, for me, this is again, there's so much more that we understand on a soul, subconscious, quantum, intuitional level, but we don't always understand how we can get downloads with our empathy body or with like our feelings and emotion, and that's translatable. So I think we're all starting to understand and open up a lot more. And it's with meditation and breath work and techniques like that that are expanding us back to what we're supposed to be as a human. You know, I think we've just been so conditioned and programmed from a lot of the industries and a lot of school and conditioning that's come through. So yeah, I'm so excited to see like where are we going to be in the next 20 years? Because I feel like we're not going back. We're not going to be shoved back and dumbed down even deeper. We're just seeing more and more people wake up to this. So it's hard in other ways to see children and what they're going through compared to the childhood we grew up with. But at the same time, some of these spirits are so rebellious that if we can as parents do that, it's going to be an amazing journey.
Yeah, because some of them came here obviously to anchor and some of them came to activate, you know, certain frequencies. I remember with my kids when they were very young, I used to have angel cards at the door. And I've suggested this to quite a lot of people. I'd have angel cards at the door, and before we leave to go to take them out to school and things like that, they would have to take an angel card. And so even though, you know, my kids sometimes they seem like pretty much 3D, I know that somewhere within their body, within their mind, is that memory of that, and it will be familiar at some point in their life. It's something that they will use, a technique or something that they will use, you know, because it is familiar to them. But it'd be fascinating, you know, to have them take a card and some of the words they don't even understand, but then we'd have that discussion of what that means.
Yeah.
And what you need to sort of bring forth for that day. Yeah.
Now, speaking of cards, Solreta, do you want to do a little bit of a card pull to see what kind of message there is for our listeners with whatever the topic is, maybe nurturing ourselves, nurturing people in our lives, and kind of building these gifts? Or however you want to phrase the question.
Well, even just like before sitting down to tune in with you girls, I was just getting message for the audience. It was around Lightbody activation. And so I ran a free activation event for my soul tribe the other day. And it was so cool because I've had some beautiful clients that, you know, I've been able to chat with a few times, and that one of them in particular really had a desire to be able to see things. And it was in that Lightbody activation that we did that all of a sudden he's like, I'm seeing things. He's like, I'm seeing color. And I did my new moon event, which is with Soul Alchemy Potions. We run a once a month new moon event. And he's like, I'm seeing things again. So I really feel that this is like where we're heading back to, tapping back into the gifts that we've maybe suppressed.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, anything we can do to add light to our aura at the moment and to clear up our chakra system and energy systems. But let's see what the cards say too.
Yeah, and this is why Amanda takes forever to respond to your emails, because she's so busy with Lightbody and people wanting to sign up for Lightbody. So anybody listening, if it's been a few days and you still haven't heard from Amanda, she will get back to you, okay?
I will get back to you.
I can be a bit the
Thank
same.
you.
It's like we're delayed in the humanness.
Yeah.
So I've got these cards here on my desk. I like to keep them face down, as you guys might have seen on other shows. So I'll just feel into these. So the first thing that comes through is I do actually feel light language comes through with this. What's so funny, the vision that Spirit is giving me in terms of the message. This is so interesting. I don't even know the word for this. You guys might need to help me with this. You know, in the museums where you see there's like a carousel and it's old black and white photos. I know the one I've seen in a museum, it was maybe a man on a horse. And when you spin the carousel of the photos, when it goes faster and picks up speed, you then see what looks like an old-fashioned movie. But it's like if you individually look at it, it's like little screenshots. So hopefully that's translating what Spirit's showing. But they're showing me with this, the information to bring through around that is we're reaching, the word that they're giving me is a higher velocity in terms of like we're picking up speed so that we will see this whole picture, or this will come into motion or come into being. But it's like, up until this point, we've just had like stop kind of photo images of like linking different things. So we're about to come into a time of, they just keep saying higher velocity. Velocity is not usually a word I use in my vocabulary, but I feel like it's like as a comet would sort of fall closer and closer into our realm or dimension, it picks up speed with that weight and I guess coming into our gravity. They're showing it's whatever it is in terms of like agenda or finding out who we truly are, we're picking up that speed or velocity. So I'll just see if there's anything else before we flip them. So yeah, I just keep hearing light language. I'll bring a bit of it through and then I'll translate. Alo sonara talakaya nahartakaya. Mihala naratalakaya sonartake. Yashala nartalakaya naratakaya yanar. Yasala naratakaya laharte. Yashalanarta koala hartea Sara. Mialanarata koala harnherto so. Yashalanarata kaala hartea nar. So what I was seeing was various different energy centers through the body, kind of orbing with light and switching back on. And then I saw it was more about like our light bodies activating and waking up to the soul memories of who we are across a multitude of dimensions, and that all echoing into the here and now. So we're on this little bit of a, and with the light language, sometimes it's an activation too. So you might want to go back and close your eyes and listen to that again.
Listen to that.
And and just like soften into that. So I'll flip these cards over. And the first card we have is the High Priestess. What we're sort of walking through, we still have like a lot of murkiness and a lot of muck down here in the 3D reality to get through. But the main message is remembering that we are divine beings. So we see here with the High Priestess, and I love that she has the bow and arrow. Whenever I see the bow and arrow, it always reminds me of the 8 of Wands card in this deck, where 8 of Wands is a compass that's like spinning out of control. It's like we've forgotten who we are. We've lost our navigation. So what we see here is she's not looking externally outside herself to remember who she is. She's literally like up in the higher realms, anchoring and bringing down her higher self, remembering her divine beingness. And then all of these beautiful gifts, which we've got the platonic solids down here too. So each one representing a different element. We have the pine cone, which is the pineal that's activated. Lots to read into that card. The other cards that we have are more tumultuous energy. So we need to clear up we need an emotional detox is what we're seeing essentially with this. And we then have the 6 of Swords, which is a card of science in this particular deck. 6 of Swords is usually where we're going on a bit of a journey too. So where we're seeing the journey is predominantly cups energy. And this is the cleanup, not just of like the emotional body, I would say the light body, because we hold a lot of stuff in our aura. So my background also is working with pranic healing too. So usually we'll go in and we'll do energy clearing in the aura. We also work with like cleaning up the chakras. We'll have a look for congestion or depletion of certain chakras. And what we sometimes find, and what we sort of see like within these cards, is even organ systems will sometimes hold emotion. So, you know, the kidneys in this particular card relate to fear. This relates to a lot of grief type energy in that particular card too. But what we're sort of looking for energetically, we don't want the root chakra or perhaps the solar plexus to be wider than the crown chakra. You know, we want to bring things in a little in terms of like the ego or in terms of unhinged root chakra energy. We want the heart to be even bigger. So what we're seeing right now is we need to work on cleanup. We need to work on activating dormant gifts. So with this 7 of disc, we see it looks almost like a little bit of a nest with eggs in it, and they're not hatched. We haven't been putting the time or attention into really being developing or activating things and codes that are within us as well. So yeah, spirit echoing the same sort of message that I was getting before we tuned in, that we really need to work with cleansing our aura, cleaning up the light body, coming into receptivity. And yeah, as much as we can detox on a physical level as well, I would also say with this, oh, and I forgot to mention, with this one, what I always get is a vision of, imagine an invisible sort of veil or a curtain, and we've got all of this wisdom and knowledge right here, and we can feel it. It feels sort of semi-tangible, but maybe not physically. This is all here for us to download. So all of these gifts are waiting for us to remember.
That's so beautiful. This is all Amanda.
Thank you.
The remembering, the light body.
Yeah.
You're talking,
remembering.
and I'm cracking up. I saw Rachel cracking up because everything you're saying is literally like hearing Amanda's voice and being like, "We're not here to learn. We're here to remember, 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 remember. Light body, light body, light body." It's amazing. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah,
thank
you. You guys, we have reached the top of the hour. Well, our hour since we started. To get more information on Solreta, links are below, but also go to solreta.com if you're interested in a reading, a healing, a guided meditation session, a light body activation. Want to say hello to Rachel, a guide, oh my gosh, a guided journey meditation, all of that. Just head on over to yoursoulwisdomshow.com. Come join our collective membership. We would love to have you. It's so much fun. It's healing. It's nurturing. It's emotional release. It's cutting ties. It's canceling contracts. It's all this stuff. It's so beautiful. Also, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our content. It is the best way to support us. We thank you for allowing us to create this beautiful space, and we hope you have a blessed day. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Solreta.